In today's video I'm going to be setting up an outside fish tank to house some of the younger fish that have come through on my fancy goldfish pond. As you can see, this pond does get quite overgrown in the summer, so not only do I want a tank set up to house the younger fish, but also I can place the larger fish in there to have a closer look at their health and check their overall condition. I have some sleeper offcuts which I'm going to use to build the fish tank stand. I have a half whiskey barrel which will be incorporated into the system. The tank itself is about 60 litres, so all in all it's probably going to be about 170 litres of water. It will also include a DIY non-drill overflow system and a small filter. I'm going to start with the fish tank stand and show you how I put that together quickly with the sleepers. I'm going to be using 150mm timber drive screw, so what I'm doing here is just marking out 50mm in from the end of the wood. The sleepers measure 200 by 100mm, so that 150mm screw, when countersunk you're getting roughly just over 50mm going into the wood. By positioning the timber screws 50mm down, it means when I line up with the other piece of sleeper, when I drill into it, it's going to be roughly hitting the centre of that 100mm wide piece of wood, which is what you want really. I always drill a pilot hole through that first sleeper there. You don't have to, but if you don't do this, it can make it quite difficult getting that timber screw through. I use an 18-bolt combi drill, and without doing that pilot hole it does struggle a little. The tank itself is 60 litres, so you're looking at 60 kilos, so it's not a great deal of weight, but you know it's weighty enough that you need to make sure this stand is pretty secure. I've used the timber drive screws quite a lot over the years on various ponds, and you know, once they're in they are solid, they don't move, and they stay like that for years to come. So that's the three lengths of sleeper fixed together. The horizontal section was 900mm and the two vertical sections are 700mm each, and all I've done is repeated this twice and then put them side by side and fix them together with these metal brackets. With these sleepers being offcuts, they weren't the exact length I needed, so you know, ideally I would have liked the sleepers sitting on top of the other sleepers. The way I've done it here, the weight of the tank's going to be pushing against the hex bolt, so I put this additional bit of wood in just as an extra support. I think that the timber screws are more than enough to hold the weight, but it's just a precautionary measure. These are anti-slip furniture pads. They keep the sleeper slightly raised off the floor and they make it a hell of a lot more stable. These sleepers are treated, so I'm just going to be leaving them as they are, I'm not going to be painting them. Okay, that's the stand finished now. So on top of the stand to be the fish tank, but underneath I'll be having one of these whiskey barrels. I've got several of these sitting around the garden. I mean, this is one I've had some water lettuce in for a few years now. The whiskey barrel currently has about an inch layer of gravel sitting on the bottom and the water lettuce at the top. That's all that's currently in there. I may change that about a bit. But the idea is the tank, there'll be a pump in there which will feed water into the tank. It will then overflow back into here through a filter. So the filter will clean the water. You've got the water lettuce, but it will help with the water quality. And then it'll be pumped back up into the tank. I'm using this galvanised metal strip here at the rear of the tank stand to secure to the whiskey barrel. The main reason being I've got a 3-year-old, and I know it's unlikely, but I don't want her pulling that stand towards her and that tank falling on her. That's never going to happen with that being secured there. Plus I can secure the filter to that strip as well. The tank itself is 900mm by 300mm with a depth of 270mm. So the stand I've built is 1100 by 400mm, so that will sit quite nicely there in the centre. With the tank sitting on the sleepers, I was a bit concerned that they're not going to be perfectly, you know, level. There might be a slight bit of, but might be slightly uneven. You know, this can cause pressure on the glass and cause cracks. So I have got one of these aquarium pads, so these can cushion any slight unevenness. Now I did ask the guy in the shop, does a tank come with one of these, and he said no, so I did purchase one, the closest to the size of the tank I had. And what I didn't realise is staring right in my face at the bottom of the tank is one cut precisely to size. So yeah, I do buy this and cut it, but it was completely unnecessary. As you can see there, just underneath there is one. I did initially think of having the tank sitting towards the back of the stand, but when I thought about it, I think, for stability, I think it's better to have it central. Now I've positioned this tank in the shadiest spot in my garden. This only tends to get the sun towards the end of the day as the sun's setting, with it being quite a small amount of water. I mean, it adds up to about 170 litres, but in a sunny day, if you was to put it in full sun, there could be quite significant changes in temperature, and you don't really want that. So, I mean, putting a tank outside, you do want to put it in a shady spot. With the tank being outside, you're obviously going to get significant algae growth on the glass. I'm going to let it build up on the back and the sides and just clear the front and leave it. It'll get quite a green, natural look. So that's the tank filled up now. I've treated that water with chlorine remover because once that system starts pumping around, I don't want the chlorine destroying any beneficial bacteria that will already exist in the whiskey barrel. The next step in this project is building a DIY overflow. Now you can drill the side of the tank. I didn't really want to do this, so I did a bit of research to find out alternatives, and I found this DIY siphon system, and I'm going to attempt to sort of replicate it. Now I'm building this out of 36mm waste pipe and fittings. Now once set up and installed on the tank, what you have is two holes at the top of this system, and you put some rubber tubing down there, and it essentially siphons out of the tank into your sump below your tank. Now I do end up messing around with this quite a bit over a few weeks to fine tune it. What I'll do is I'll show you what I initially did and the setup. I'll lay the fittings and the cuts I made on the floor so you can see. Now I didn't glue any of this, I cut all this, to size, installed it and then tested it, and I didn't glue it until I was finally happy with it. There are no fish in the system at this point, so it doesn't matter too much if there is a leak and the system drains. Now that U-bend rests quite nicely on the top of the tank, and it's fixed just with a single bracket there. There's not a lot of weight to this little PVC system, so it's not putting any pressure even when the water's flowing there onto the glass. Now I'll set it up initially just to flow directly into the whiskey barrel. Once I'm happy with it, it will be flowing into a small filter which will then drain into the whiskey barrel. Now the length of tubing is pushed right the way down to the bottom of each of the section of the UPVC. You cut the tubing at an angle, you don't want it straight because it will just hit the bottom and restrict flow, so it has to be cut at an angle. And the pump I initially tried setting this up with is a 300 litre an hour flow rate. I do increase that. But we'll get to that in a minute. With the 300 litre an hour, you're looking at a turnover rate in the tank of 5 times an hour. I do increase that to about 600 litres an hour, so it's 10 times an hour. So this is the first attempt. As the water gets pumped from the whiskey barrel up into the tank and the water level rises, it goes down the overflow. That fills up. Now with that bit of tubing, you pull the section out of the UPVC pipe going down to the whiskey barrel, and you suck on it to get the flow going, and then push that tubing back down into the UPVC. Once you've got that siphon going, it just keeps going, it doesn't stop. That's the idea. But the 300 litres an hour flow rate wasn't sufficient, so I kept getting that gurgling noise and it would come to a stop, which led to me getting a more powerful pump. So while waiting for the new pump to arrive, I wanted to try and cover up this outflow. So what I did is raided this old whiskey barrel, added some plants and stones, and arranged it in such a way to try and cover it as best as possible. I did mess around quite a lot with this, trying to get it to work on the 300 litres an hour, but all I was getting was this. I got it running steadily, but all I was getting was this gurgling. So I mean, that's what led me to think that I needed an increased flow rate. The new pumps arrived and we're pushing out about 600 litres an hour now, and I think I realised what I did wrong with this PVC overflow system. So the left hand side sitting there in the tank, I've extended that right down to the bottom of the tank. I've had to increase the length of the flexible tubing as well, put that back down into the PVC overflow system, and got the siphon running, and I've taken a little few notches out the outflow here, which seems to make it run a little bit better and it's less noisy. I've added some water lettuce to the tank as well now, and it seems to be running quite well, so I'm going to let this run for a week or so and see how it goes. And if I'm happy with it, Then I'm going to move on to the filter and put some fish in there. So that's been running a week now without any issues whatsoever. So got a bit of algae build up. But what I'm going to do now is move on to the filter. And what I'm going to do here is, this is a 2 litre water bottle. I'm just going to cut the top few inches off, and I'm going to fill this with alpha grog and tie wrap it underneath to that metal bracket that connects the tank stand and the whiskey barrel. I've used alpha grog for a number of years now on my DIY filters on my ponds, and I don't have any trouble with it whatsoever, and I've always got a bit lying around here. So, and I put some larger rocks at the bottom there where the cap is, because you can't put small ones that just go straight through. So the larger ones, then sprinkle a few small ones over the top, and then you can just sprinkle what different sizes on top of that. So we've got about 160 litres of water here. I'm only going to put sort of 2, maybe 4 small goldfish in here. I'll start with 2. I'll obviously test, I'll see how this goes. If I do have any issues with this little filter and I think I need more media, obviously I'll adjust it, but it's a sort of testing thing. I'll just see how it goes. And whenever you're setting up a new pond or an aquarium, you want to take it slowly, introduce the fish, test the water, do it all gradually and let that beneficial bacteria build up. So the way this filter works, obviously the stones aren't going to be fully submerged in water. The water's going to be running through and trickling down, a bit like a backy shower for a koi pond. Over time, the alpha grog will develop a biofilm on there, and you'll get a bit of algae growth. You'll have beneficial bacteria growth, and because they're so aerated, because they're not fully submerged, it gases off the ammonia as well. So they are quite good little filters. I'm going to have to put something on top of this filter to more evenly spread the water, because at the minute it's just gushing straight away down. You want to spread it over the filter material so it's all getting damp and staying damp. With a continuous trickle of water going over the media, I'm introducing gravel to the bottom here. I always put gravel in the bottom of my ponds and tanks. The main reason being is I want as much beneficial bacteria in the system as possible. So, as well as your filtration system, if you've got a gravel bed there, obviously, and you're circulating the water correctly, you've always got water movement over that gravel, you're going to get a lot of beneficial bacteria sitting on the bottom of that tank or pond as well. This all helps in the breakdown of ammonia and keeping your water quality good and those fish healthy. So I've added a large stone to the top here, and as you can see, the water's trickling down pretty much all around it, and it's giving a much even spread of water filtering down through the alpha grog. So now that's run, I think it's time to introduce a few fish to start getting some ammonia into that system. You can see it's my cat Rubes. It doesn't matter where I build any sort of water feature, she's always interested. If there's a new water feature, that's why she'll drink for a few weeks. This is my fancy goldfish pond. It's about 1,500 litres. I think there's 20 to 25 fancy goldfish in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of the smaller ones out of here and just put them straight into the tank. I have done a 50% water change and taken 75 litres of water out of here and put it into this system. So it's and I've checked the temperature's the same. Half the water's from the pond they're just coming from, so I'm quite happy to put them straight in. These aren't necessarily the fish that are going to be staying in this tank. I just wanted to introduce some to get that ammonia cycle going and that beneficial bacteria building up. I'll probably eventually have around 4 this size in this top tank, and I'll occasionally use it to inspect one of the bigger fish, or if there's a fish that sees I see something that could possibly be wrong with it and I need to inspect it, I'll just drop it in here temporarily and have a better look at it, then take it back out again. They're both heated, they're going to be heated to the same temperature, so I'm not too worried about doing that. I do get asked quite a lot about keeping fancy goldfish outside. You can do it, but you do need to heat the water, and you've got to obviously bear in mind the cost of electricity of heating the water over a winter period. It can be a bit pricey. Well, I'm just going to leave this run now for a couple of weeks and obviously test the water, see how it gets on. Everything's fine. I think I'll put a few more in. Okay, so I've removed the goldfish from the setup, and I've pumped all the water out into a large water container, and I'm going to just have a little mess around. I'm putting some pebbles in there, some larger pebbles, and this bottom whiskey barrel, I think I'm going to put some, make a bit of a feature of it. reintroduce the water, and then put some more fish in. I think I'm going to put a couple of fish in the bottom one as well. 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom. So I've reintroduced the water now, got the system back up running. I think I'm finally happy with it now. I think I'm probably going to leave it like this. I'm pleased with it. I think it looks quite nice. The water's clouded up a little bit there where I've had to disturb the system, but that'll clear in a couple of hours. I think it's time to put some more fish back into the system now. I'm going to put 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom, like I said. The fish can be quite difficult to catch them, even though they're fat and slow. You catch that first one, the rest know what's going on, and they tend to dive down into the weed. I've got some other smaller volumes of water with fancy goldfish in, and depending on what the winter's like, if it is a particularly cold winter, what I normally tend to do is get all the fancies into this one 1500 litre system, and then it means I only have to heat one system and it saves on the cost. So there we go, I've managed to catch 4, 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom. I'm not sure whether to put something in the background of the tank or just leave it there so where you can see the fence panel there. I'm not quite sure what to do with that really. I don't mind it too much the way it is. I'm always tinkering around, keeping an eye on things and changing things really. It's one of the things I like about keeping fish. Fancy goldfish for years, mainly in tanks when I was younger, but the last sort of 5 years I've been keeping them outside, and to be honest with you, they thrive outside as long as you keep that water heated, you have spare heaters on hand, and keep a close eye on them. I think it's the diet that you get an algae build up, and you see how fat they are. These greedy little fish, they spend all their time grazing on the side of the pond eating that algae, and that algae diet, along with whatever you feed them, they just seem to be healthy. I have less health issues with them keeping them outside. I think it does them a world of good. What I'll do now is I'll only clean that front panel of glass. The back panel and the 2 side panels I'll leave to have an algae build up on there so they got something to graze on. Now if anyone watching has any sort of like better ideas, any improvements I can make on this system, any criticism, I don't mind a bit of criticism, it's how we all learn. Yeah, just put it in the messages. Thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.